Hi everyone, welcome to this demo day presentation about the new product that we have released, GenAI AppStudio. My name is Shivam Bansal and I'm also joined by Praveen, and we both are the co-developers of this GenAI AppStudio. Um, GenAI AppStudio's goal is to create GenAI apps, all the wave applications having power of LLM, having an integrated LLM to perform question answering, to perform RAG capabilities are called GenAI apps. And the goal with GenAI App Studio is to really simplify the process of creating these applications. There are two main parts in GenAI App Studio, two main elements. So one is it uses GenAI in various forms. Um, the very first use is GenAI is used to create these applications. What we mean by that is the GenAI App Studio involves two of our proprietary frameworks called sketch2app and prompt2app, and both of these frameworks essentially takes inputs in the form of, say, sketches, which could be a wireframe, which could be a design, and those get converted to fully functional wave application. Or users can even define their own layout prompts. By layout prompt, we essentially mean user can define what they expect in the app layout, what they expect, let's say, in the header, in the middle cards, in the bottom cards, and then provide this prompt as input. And then prompt to app framework converts that user prompt into fully functional web application. So in one way, GenAI is being used, is being leveraged to create the applications. The other ways in which GenAI is being used in the GenAI App Studio is by providing RAG capabilities and LLM capabilities in the final applications, in the final end products, which are the generated apps. So generated apps, not only they will have data, they will have documents, they will have visuals, they will have different components, but they will also have an LLM inside that app that can be used to perform RAG, that can be used for the scenarios of talk to your data, talk to your documents, talk to your models, or talk open-ended questions, perform information retrieval, perform any general QA, interact with that bot, interact with that LLM. So an LLM inside the generated app is one of the other essence in which GenAI App Studio offers the power of GenAI. And the third way in which GenAI is being used in this whole GenAI App Studio is to create the content, to generate text, to generate titles, to generate headings, or any other form of text object that can be used to modify the generated app, that can be used to add new elements or update existing, say, random synthetic text with the actual generated content with the power of LLM, with the power of H2GPT, which is integrated within the app. So GenAI App Studio uses the power of GenAI in various forms to create the app and to provide GenAI experiences. And the other important thing to talk about in GenAI apps is these apps are not just, say, one page app. These apps are not just the apps with some dummy data, synthetic data. These are the apps with real data. These are the apps with LLMs. These are the tabs which can really provide more than one page, single page experience, could be multiple tabs. So that's why they're not just a dashboard. They are really the apps with real interactivity, real interactions between multiple pages. And what we mean by real data is the user has an option to provide their own data at the time of app creation. So what it means, when user provides this input, that data is being consumed, that data is being understood automatically by LLM, and then it generates various insights, various visualizations that get embedded in the final generated app. Right. So these GenAI apps are more than just a standard dashboard or just a standard apps. These are really the apps having various such capabilities. And one of the other component that is also provided in this whole GenAI App Studio is an inbuilt studio. So this is the studio for providing customization capabilities, for providing capabilities where user can tailor their app further, tailor the final generated app according to their requirements. So this studio has some wizards to generate content, wizards to change the theme, change the colors. There is also an option of changing the source code, and there is also a final option to even download the full source code of the app, so that the generated app can be taken out from this platform and maybe can be deployed some at other places. There is another option which is not yet integrated in the demo, which is called OneClick Deployment. So that will be added very soon. But we have another app in the App Store which is called sketch2Streamlit app. That deployment option is provided in that. So if there are people who are interested in that, they can check the Streamlit, sketch2Streamlit option. All right, so let's go into the demo of this application. So this app is available on both Cloud QA and internal dedicated as of now. Just there is one constraint, that the sketch2app model is available on both, but the prompt2app model is only available on Cloud QA for now. I think in a couple of weeks it will be available on internal as well. So let's get started. So this is the home page. Like we see what I just described in the previous slide. Users can provide their ideas, users can provide their data. Then there are these unique models frameworks which generates the app. Users can customize it, they can deploy it, they can download it. So let's start creating a new project by Sketch. So the very first thing that we need to choose is what type of app we are looking for. What is the industry? So we choose financial services. It automatically suggests some random title or some random keywords related to the industry we have chosen. So we can just choose that, or we can edit that. At this point of time, there is an option of fast forwarding, which essentially means we don't want to provide any data, any document, any sketch, and we just want, just with this, get an app with something synthetic data. However, if users wants to provide their own options in the form of the first thing, which is a sketch, so user can provide a sketch. So let either they can upload or they can choose a sample. So let's take a look at one of the sample sketches. So maybe I want to choose, since this is a financial industry loan example, loan default. And in this example, we have 3 pages, 3 sketches. So that's why there are 3 wireframes we see. We have a header, we have a welcome card, we have a footer, we have a header, some stat cards, some stack visualizations, line chart, table, footer. And on the 3rd page, we also have a header, we have again an image, we have some visualizations, we have again some metrics, some Gauss charts, etc. So these are the 3 pages that we have provided as input, we have provided as sketch, and users can change, users can even provide more, and accordingly these will be created as different tabs. So let's go to the next step, which is about data. So now we can provide a sample data or a real use case data. If user doesn't provide, random synthetic data is used. So let us pick one of the sample data. So this is a loan prediction use case. So we'll use the loan one, where we have columns like gender, dependents, income, loan amount, etc. So let us use this. Next, we go to the document selection. So this type of document will be used for the purposes of, again, RAC, question answering. So let's say we already have one of the documents in loan prediction, so we can use that. And we click next. So the moment we click next, what happens is it triggers the pipeline where all of these user inputs are being consumed. Sketch2 model is activated. Sketch2 app model converts the sketches into the DSL token. DSL token in turn then converts it into the fully functional app. And here you see the source code which is getting generated. It has this interesting integration which we have added, which is H2GPT-E integration. And this is the core engine which is really driving all the RAC capabilities, all the LLM capabilities. So all these apps that get generated will have an inbuilt H2GPT-E component as well. So here we have our app generated. So we can take a look at this app within this UI, or we can click preview, which will open a different UI in a different tab. So here we see this is exactly matching the sketch that we provided, a header on the top, a welcome card, and a footer in the bottom. The next page is about some visualization we see. Again, same metrics, same Gauss charts we are asked for. In the next one also, we asked to generate an image, some more charts, a line chart, polygon chart. And in fact, we can click on assets. So assets really shows what user inputs were provided. So if I take a look at the sketch, so we do see exactly what was provided and exactly what got generated in the other screens. And we can also take a look at the data set, the document that was provided. So this is the app which gets generated, but the most important part in this app is this LLM integration. So now with all the tabs that got generated, now we also have an LLM. One point I forgot to mention, if we go back to these tabs, all of these data, all of these numbers is real data, is real aggregated stats, real calculations that were computed based on the data set that was provided. So in this case, loan default prediction data set was provided. So all these aggregations are kind of generated automatically with the idea of auto insights, with the idea of auto viz. And that's why it kind of populate this with the real data. So now coming back to RAG, coming back to LLM, in this screen, we can use this LLM to do three different type of things. So one is we can talk to the document. So if we ask questions like what is this app about, or we ask questions like what is this use case about, what is the potential models used, what is the data set used, how financial institution measure the effectiveness of loans. So we do see some example questions here on the left also. What is happening when I ask this question is it is connecting back to H2O GPT-E, and from H2O GPT-E, it is performing the RAG on those documents and it is resending the response via the client, via the API. So depending upon the speed, it might take less or more time. We'll wait here. In the meantime, while the response is generated, here we have the response. So here we see what H2GPT-E is suggesting, that application is a loan prediction system that uses ML algorithms and predictive analytics to assess the creditworthiness of loan applications and so on and so forth. So all of this answer is kind of generated on the documents that we provided. In this case, we did provide a document of about this use case, about loan prediction, loan default prediction, and then we can really ask these questions about the documents as such. The other scenario, the other things we can do in this is we can also ask some open-ended question like in general, let's say, how does creditworthiness, how does loan default prediction models are created? We can specify this type of a tag, minus minus open. What it will trigger is it will not go to H2GPT-E, it will rather go to H2GPT, only H2GPT, because it will become just a question answer. So you guys can also try this. The other experimental feature which we have also added, why I'm saying this experimental, because this is still a beta feature and it is a bit tricky, is ask data. Now the data that we provided in this application which was about loan default, we can ask questions on that data also. So maybe let's try to ask questions like maybe we can start with the simple question. How many rows and columns are there in the data set? We need to provide this flag, data set flag. So what it does right now, it will still use H2GPT, but in this workflow of dataset QA, we convert this user prompt into a SQL query, a pandas related code, and then that type of a code or that query is then performed and applied on the dataset in order to get the answer. So this is a bit tricky features, but it works. Like in this case, we see it has answered like there are about 640 rows and 13 columns. It has pulled in that information on top of that data set. We can even ask things like, just let's say, what is the average value of loan amount? In this case, I'm not sure if loan amount column exists. So it may or may not work. The better would have been if I would have asked a question like, tell me what are the columns in the data set, and then I could have used that specific data set. So in fact, one way to look at that is if we can go to the assets and really confirm. So we do have loan amount, yes. But yeah, the thing is we need to really specify what is the exact column. Let's maybe ask another question, again similar to data set. Say, what is the distribution of gender? In this case, it will really understand that user has asked for gender distribution, and gender is one of the column in the dataset. What it will try to do is again convert this question user prompt into a SQL query or a pandas equivalent code, and then that code will be applied on the dataset in order to get the answer. The model which we are using is still H2GPT. H2GPT is kind of converting this user prompt into a relevant code, and then it kind of gives this type of an answer. So here we see males are 489 and females are 112, and this is an integer type column as as we got from the data. Cool. So this is one of the use case. This is one of the example that we talked about. Let me quickly now show. Let me in fact go back to this app, out taking out from the studio, and coming back to the studio, taking out from the preview. So this was the generated app. We do have some more options on the top. These options are about content generation. So let's say we want to generate some content. Maybe we want to generate a title. So we want to generate a title about loan default prediction. So then it will again connect to H2GPT. It will try to generate some content, and the idea will be, instead of what was generated on the first run, which was this digital banking solution, maybe now I want to regenerate this text. I can regenerate the H2GPT response, and maybe I can update that. So here it says predicting loan default, a pretty simple title, but yeah, maybe I'm happy with it. So what I'll do, I'll just update the generated app. I'll select this, and here we see the title is changed now. So this is more like a content generation wizard. We do have provided a lot of plugins like title, paragraphs, insights, but users can even provide their own text. Like I want to really change something. Any text that we see here can be changed, can be tweaked just by this content wizard. There is another wizard, which is the theme wizard, which allows us to change the theme. So here we see we do have all the standard themes that Wave offers, but we also have an option of custom theme. In case we want to choose specific colors, we can apply that. But let's try an example where we want to use one of the existing themes, say Ember theme. And the moment I selected this, it will change the entire theme. So in fact, let's take a look at in the preview how this looks like. So now it's more of this light theme, red colors, very light. So again, if you're not happy with it, we can always change, we can always update. So this was more about theme wizard. This is an option to view the app or refresh the app just in case we are on the different page. This is the source code. We also provide all the source code, and maybe we want to change something in the source code. That is also provided. For example, of course, we can change the images. We can also change some content. We can also change some data. We can also connect it with some other data sets. Anything that we change here, that will automatically get reflected in the application. So here I just changed one of the chart title, and immediately it also changed the app, and it is trying to show that change on the right hand side. So what did I change? I changed, I guess, one of the column, sorry, one of the visualization title. And let's see, so this one, so I just changed it to dataset, and here we see it is changed. So essentially the entire source code is provided to the users in case they want to make some updates, make some changes, and once they are satisfied, they can just download this. They can download the full source code of this app, and then this can be used to run it at other places. Right, so this is the demo of GenAI AppStudio with one of the example. Let me very quickly also show prompt2app. So what differs in prompt2app, instead of providing a sketch, we can define the sketch. We can define the layout, what we expect. So here we already have some examples. Like for example, here is a financial services industry, and we've asked for create a cutting edge technology interface for predictive maintenance. So we don't want predictive maintenance. I will maybe wait, I will rather choose a different one. So we have some examples. Let's say this one. This is for financial services. I'll just copy this and come back to this interface. So here we see we are asking for a financial services dashboard organized in 4 rows, and here we are really defining what to expect in 4 rows. So first row should feature 6 gauge cards. Second row will be providing data visualization, a stack chart, a stat card, and a radar plot, right? And in the third row, we are saying that place a metric card, 3 metric cards, and a heat map. And in the fourth and the final row should contain 3 tables, each presenting some specific data. So this is, I have not drawn a sketch, drawn a wireframe, I have just defined what to expect. And rest of the steps will remain same. What I'll do, I'll just click fast forward in order to pick a random data set or document, but sketch will be exactly based on the prompt that we have written, the prompt that user has provided. So the layout or the sketch will be very similar, in fact exactly similar to the way user has defined. So let's wait for this to generate it, and here you see based on what user defined the prompt, the sketch is getting generated. What is happening now, what happened just on the previous screen, based on the prompt, the sketch got generated. And then once we had the sketch, now we see we have the app. And we see that exactly what we described, 6 gauge charts on the top, some of these other charts, some of the other cards, 3 tables in the bottom, heat map in the middle, exactly what user has defined, we have got this. The rest of the things remain the same. We do have an LLM, we do have the RAG capability, we can ask open-ended question, we can ask questions about the data set, and then again this type of an app can be downloaded also. So this is prompt2app example, and sketch2app and prompt2app are very unique core proprietary models from us. But if you look at the left hand side, essentially the idea is we need to provide our inputs, our ideas, which could be what is the sketch, what is the prompt, what is the data, what are the documents, and what we get out of it is a fully functional app which can be customized, which can be downloaded, which can be deployed, which can be edited according to the user needs. Right, so this is pretty much it about GenAI AppStudio. I recommend everyone to try this on internal cloud or cloud QA. And if there are feedbacks, please share the feedback directly to us or in the GitHub repo. And it will really help us to improve this app further. And we're really looking forward to some of these applications in the App Store. In fact, in the internal App Store, we have added some default, some sample applications which are generated by this App Studio. There are, I think, 4. So users can also take a look into these generated apps, and maybe you can also upload these apps once they are generated. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thanks from me, as well as thanks from Praveen. Bye.